So, which is the better representation of our justice system? Law and Order or Better Call Saul? This question arguably might be answered by the next few minutes of my rambling. This is an essay that I gave as part of a grad school thing. It was a project, but I'm lazy, and so I'm going to repurpose it for my YouTube channel because why not? It's mostly focused around this guy named Don BlankenShit, who's a real piece of blanking shit. I just came up with it on the spot, and I'm very proud of myself. Anyway, he has a body count, not the sexy kind, the murder kind, up there with like John Wayne Gacy, murder clowns, that sort of thing. And yet, despite being on like horror deep dives and icebergs and tier lists or whatever on YouTube, Don Blankenship is mostly not talked about. And when he's talked about, it's talked about positively as a candidate for the Republican Party. He ran for office after everything I'm about to tell you, just to put it in perspective. And he can probably buy and sell your net worth around 86 times statistically. I checked, I did the math. He's extremely rich and more powerful than most of us will ever be, despite definitely getting a lot of people killed for money. So, what did he do? He was the CEO of Massey Energy for quite a while, and that's how a lot of his crimes unfolded. All of it was due to his money first tight bottom line policies he had within the company, where he would refuse to do even minor things to assure the safety of his workers or even the states he operated in, because he's a money grubbing piece of shit, mostly. And he has a legal obligation to his shareholders, but that's a whole other thing. Regardless, he caused this ecological disaster way back in 2003. Sorry, I'm checking my Fakakta presentation. Yeah, he caused an ecological disaster 3 times the size of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which was way less talked about than the Exxon Valdez thing for whatever reason. But essentially, it involved this huge coal slurry plant that was confined in a mine that the company had been warned about dozens of times, was insufficient and was going to blow someday. Sure enough, one day it blew. I totally leaked out these hundreds of thousands of tons of industrial sludge. It got into 2 major rivers. It poisoned the drinking water of around 27,000 people. It also killed 1.6 million fish and poisoned around 70 acres of farmland, if you care about that sort of thing. The main thing is the 27,000 people he poisoned, though. It's pretty fucked up. Now, you'd hope in a sane society someone like this would at least be fired, or maybe even get a slap on the wrist punishment, or, God willing, just be put in prison for decades. I'm usually for restorative justice, but this guy's trouble, right? He's damaged thousands of lives. However, in the boring dystopia we live in, he was instead fined $5,600. That's it. 2 years later, too. It wasn't right away. It took a lot of litigation to even get that punishment applied, and it was taken from the company's fund. It was not fined to him personally. He also maintained his position of authority. That wasn't enough to get him canned as a CEO, right? Whereas if you take a bathroom break and your average service job, you're screwed. So, however, what I will give him, Don Blankenship, what I will give to the meritocracy of our CEO positions is that he does have hustle. He has grustle. He has grind. It's just that grind is all focused around making the world worse for everyone who lives on it. And he continued his shit. He didn't let, being fined $5,600 stop him. He violated the Clean Water Act, which, you can guess what it's about, 4,500 times in the next few years after this whole major natural disaster thing. Well, man-made disaster. You get the deal. He violated the Clean Water Act 4,500 times afterwards, and for this, in a series of lawsuits that were drawn out for years, of course, because he had good lawyers, the company was fined $20 million, which is a small fraction of their operating budget and much less than the $2.6 billion in damages that the state was originally seeking. So, yeah, pretty bad. Then in 2009, comes the body count I mentioned at the start for clickbait. One of Don's mines that the MSHA had warned him about around 515 times about their safety violations. To be fair, it's a little ambiguous whether or not this went beyond middle management, but regardless, this was due to Don BlankenShip's internal company policies. They're also heartbreaking stories of miners coming home from work and telling their families that they're barely holding on, that they feel like something's bad's going to happen right before something bad did happen. The mine exploded due to a gas leak or something along those lines. Around 29 out of 31 of the miners present burned to death horribly. Some of them suffocated over the course of days. It was really, really bad. Most people who went into that mine didn't come out alive. And it was covered in the news for a little bit, but not as much as you'd hope. It's the worst mining disaster in the area in at least 40 years. And it took years of litigation for Don BlankenShip to face any consequences for this. He was eventually convicted of a misdemeanor for all that, and he served around 1 year of a prison sentence. It was closer to being community service. He could come and go as he wanted. He got conjugal visits. And after that, he ran for office for the Republican Party. He got quite well funded by his other peers in the energy sector too, because they're demons with no souls, honestly. And yeah, it's really fucked up. He was then rewarded for all this. When Massey Energy was bought out by Alpha Natural Resources, which I would make a joke about the male hierarchy stuff there, Alpha Sigma stuff, but this is too fucked up. I don't even feel like it. His company was bought out, and he got a larger share than even the sitting CEO at the time. He got paid out $86 million. $86 million. More than most people will make in a lifetime. Why I said earlier, you could probably buy and sell most of our net worths several times over. He got a cushy retirement for all the harm he did to the world, the thousands of people he hurt, the dozens of people he indisputably killed. I would even give more credit to a lot of historical serial killers for doing it with their own hands. And you could make an argument that being stabbed to death is less painful than being burned alive deep in a mine while all of your friends die horribly around you. It's really bad. He's, in my worldview at least, I hope you sympathize, he's one of the biggest criminals I've heard of recently. And not only was he barely punished, he's wealthier than most people will ever be. Rewarded actively by the fucking bullshit society we live in. I had a more profound thing scripted out, but I'm making a point of not looking at my script just to test my, I don't know, acting chops to make the version of me that would go out to high school plays when I was in K-12 proud for script memorization. Whatever. I'm getting off topic. Don BlankenShip is a real Don Blanken piece of shit. And I think he's sadly kind of representative of how much you can get away with if you're wealthy or if you're powerful. You can harm thousands, irreparably damage the environment around you, kill dozens, and it just doesn't matter. In fact, you'll probably be rewarded for it. You'll get a pat on the back and a cushy retirement and a political office, potentially. It's just fucked. And it's stories like these that get me out of bed in the morning to try to change the world with union advocacy and the stuff like this and stuff like this YouTube channel. So I hope you, I don't know, enjoy listening. This is a pretty depressing story, I'll admit. But at the very least, I can be cathartic to see that the feeling you get day to day of us living in kind of a hellish world as smoke from the Canadian wildfires chokes pretty much all of the US. There's something rotten at the core of our system that's causing this. It's not just you. And there is a deep sickness at the heart of our economic and social systems that actively encourages this kind of monstrous macro level cruelty. I would say there is a way to fix it. Organizing, general strikes, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, I think it's important to remember what we're up against. The monstrousness of people who are kind of coerced by the situation they live in to see human lives as human resources, as just numbers, as assets, you know? And I think this story is a sobering and worthwhile reminder. I promise I'll have videos that are about more intellectually abstract topics as well coming up soon. But in the meantime, I just wanted to share this. That's it. Yeah. Sonder out. Bye. Stop recording.